Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee Grounds. This is a show on nursing in the media. I'm Sandy Summers.
And I'm Harry Summers.
We are from The Truth About Nursing. Coffee Grounds is a lively look at the media's treatment of the nursing profession. Based on our work on this subject since 2001, we talk about everything from Hollywood to the news to social media, exploring what we think is good and what we think could be better. Along the way, we'll get into many of the most pressing issues of nursing today, including abusive working conditions, nursing innovations, the criminalization of nursing, and the future of the profession. Join us for coffee, cats, and complaints. So, Harry, this week we're talking about the 2024 fall television preview. So tell us about the shows that have gone off the air.
That's right. Well, there's been several shows that went off the air last season, nurse-related shows, which we try to monitor. And one of them was The Good Doctor.
Right. I was happy to see that go. That was from the creator of House, which also wasn't good for nursing. It was about a physician with autism.
That's right. It was built around a really gifted physician and a team of gifted physicians. And typically there weren't nurse characters. A couple minor nurse characters toward the end of the show appeared, and they weren't bad, but still it was dominated by the brilliant physicians. So another...
Right. Bob Hart's At the Shoulder is also going off the air. And that show, I was so hopeful when it first appeared. You know, there was a strong nurse character. It had good examination of race and society. And it was, I liked it for not just nursing, but what it could say about humanity and teach us all. And then after, 2 or 3 years, right, she decided to become a physician.
Yeah, the lead character was a good nurse. The show was mainly about family relations and workplace relations at the sock company that Bob, the co-lead, ran. But it did include some decent plot lines. But unfortunately, Abishola was always obsessed with the status of medical school. That's where she wanted her son to go, and eventually decided she had to pursue that herself. So that lasted the last couple seasons, 2 or 3 seasons. And that was kind of an unfortunate transition for us. So it reinforced the idea that nurses aspire to be physicians, which on the whole is not really the case. So
right. So that show was gone. And what else is gone? New Amsterdam.
New Amsterdam. That's right. That's another physician-focused show where there were a couple minor nurse characters through the years who weren't bad, but for the most part, they were skilled assistants to the physicians who really ran the show. And they tended to defer and didn't do much on their own.
Right. He was the great physician, and everyone else was lesser than.
Yes, he was a maverick New York physician, and there's a new show that has such a physician as well. Somewhat different, but we'll get to that.
Right. So we do have some new shows coming up, and some actually feature nurses. So we got to see. We're a little late with our fall television preview. And here's our cat. Oh, we wanted to feature cats as well because people like cats. Here's Ozil. So, right. So one of the new shows we got to watch.
Dr. Odyssey is a show about a small elite medical team or healthcare team on a cruise ship, a luxury cruise ship. It's called Dr. Odyssey, I believe, because the name of the ship is Odyssey. And although this team is led by a physician character, there are 2 highly skilled nurse characters. When we saw previews for the show, we noticed that, but we also noticed a preview in which one nurse was apparently having a hookup with the physician character. This didn't seem promising because that's another stereotype about nursing, is that nurses are looking to get a physician romantically. And we were able to see the first episode. We saw that they were in fact highly skilled, which was great. The nurse I'm thinking of is an NP, nurse practitioner. And there was sort of a quasi hookup. They went down that road, this nurse and the physician, and then they pulled back and said, why, this would be inappropriate. Why, we're in the workplace together. And technically, I guess the physician is deemed to be her supervisor. And so they spent time talking about how it was inappropriate, and they wouldn't do that anymore. I think they might, but in any case, it wasn't as bad as we feared. So I'd say Ryan Murphy, who doesn't have a great track record for shows with nursing elements, even though he's a legendary Hollywood producer,
At first, we had a feeling of trepidation about the show because, well, Ryan Murphy also created the shows Ratched and Glee, which had nursing portrayals that were damaging to nursing. But the first episode of Dr. Odyssey showed the nurse practitioner character Avery and the staff nurse character Tristan as competent and professional. The nurse practitioner educated the physician character about several things, and she really held her own. So then we became hopeful that maybe Ryan Murphy was making amends to the nursing profession and finally showing some positivity about nursing. But we were so disappointed when we saw episode 2. Much of that came crashing down. At least the nurse characters were depicted again as competent. But one theme of the episode was that nurse practitioner character Avery came to believe that her life amounted to nothing because basically she would never become a physician. The episode was about the ship's singles week, which caused some characters to think about where they were in life. So at one point, we find Avery depressed and crying. Her fellow nurse Tristan approaches, calling her a genius for recently making a great diagnosis. That means nothing, she says. She explains that she's given up everything, relationships and family, for a job that she now sees as a dead end, basically because she'll never become a physician. Tristan attempts to cheer her up, but in a totally generic way, saying her work matters because she matters. No defense of nursing. But what does cheer her up is when the ship's physician finds that the cruise line has a scholarship that will pay for her medical school in exchange for her later serving as the ship's doctor for 3 years. She's elated. She will basically be doing the same job, saving the same lives, but as a physician. So it seems the lives she saved will then matter. This is the wannabe physician stereotype that we have seen from Hollywood for more than 20 years. It goes back to at least as far as ER with the Carol Hathaway and Abby Lockhart characters. We've seen it on Private Practice with the Dell character, and on shorter-lived shows such as the 2009 show Mercy, and of course Bob Hart's Abishola, which just ended last year. It's inaccurate and very damaging to suggest that nurses will never be professionally satisfied unless and until they become physicians, as if medicine is better, as if nurses don't save lives, as if only the lives physicians save matter. And this is especially damaging when, as here, the nurse character expresses contempt for her own profession in the process, and the other nurse fails to defend their profession as well. All right, so what else do we have? Brilliant Minds, we also saw last week.
Right. We saw the first episode of Brilliant Minds. That's a show with Zachary Quinto playing a version of the real-life famous pioneering neurologist Oliver Sacks. So he's looking to try to improve care for people who have neurological issues, very challenging issues, perhaps where people are having trouble connecting. And so, as we suspected, it's a show driven by brilliant physicians. That's from the name, led by this character, the Oliver character, played by Zachary Quinto. And he has a team of 4 interns, and he has this quirky house-like relationship with them, which we can tell is going to grow over time. But also, as we predicted, sadly from previews, the nurse characters who do appear in this first episode anyway, are really just there to represent the obstructive bureaucracy that is limiting the ability of this pioneering neurologist to really care for patients. So he's providing the holistic care, breaking rules, and breaking things in general. And the nurses are just there to clamp down on him. So
Stop that. Where are you going?
Yeah, they don't really care about the patients.
They hardly appeared at all, but when they did, they were there to just throw a roadblock in the path of the brilliant physician. So that was sad. It was also sad because as a show, it showed this character who was caring, compassionate, courageous, pursued holism. So if we didn't have anything to do with nursing in the media, I kind of would have liked the show, but it just has this really damaging portrayal of nurses as bureaucratic obstacles, which we cannot abide by.
That's true. Well, another new show is more promising, and that's St. Denis Medical, which hasn't premiered yet until November.
We've only seen the trailer so far, but it was really hopeful. The character was very gritty and yet knowledgeable, tough, and, she looked like a good nurse and fun.
Yeah, what appears to be the show's central character. It's actually a mockumentary, and she seems to be the narrator and the central character in the show. There are two other nurse characters, so there's a rough parody between nurse and physician characters on that show. And even though everyone's going to come off as kind of kooky, because it's that type of show, I think there's some potential for some kind of helpful messaging about nursing in the show. So,
Right. So I'm hopeful. When's that coming on here?
I think it's November 12th.
Oh, so we have a little bit of a wait.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's another show coming, Doc.
Yeah, it's actually it's on Fox. It's supposed to arrive at mid-season. It's based on an Italian show that we understand has been adapted in other nations as well, about a brilliant physician noticing a trend where she has lost her memory for the last 8 years because of, I think, a head injury. She doesn't remember what's happened, but now she's sort of recovered in the sense that she can now form new memories and is wondering what happened to her life. So it's all about this brilliant physician reconnecting with the people in her life, people she may have pushed away. From what we can see, based on limited previews, it seems to be a physician-dominated show, and it seems unlikely that a nurse character will emerge in a helpful way, especially because the showrunner worked on Private Practice, a spinoff of Grey's Anatomy, which was also very bad for nursing. So we're not too hopeful about that, but we'll see.
I am reminded in discussing Private Practice and some of the other shows that we've written many of them up over the years, and you can see our reviews on our website at truthaboutnursing.org. So we have some shows that are returning. My favorite is Call the Midwife. Of course, if you haven't seen it, it is the best show for nursing, and it's been on top of our awards list ever since it came out 13 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. This is going to be the 14th season after their usual Christmas special. So
it starts off in the 1950s, and now we're in 1970, actually. And the show progresses 1 year for every calendar year. So it shows nurses in the community, of course, delivering babies at home, and sometimes in the hospital as the show has gone on in years. But also, it shows them doing community health work. So not all of their patients are pregnant. Sometimes they're just sick with other things. And it shows them advocating for the patients, not just on a personal level, but on a system-wide level as well. And because it's not shown in the hospital too much, that allows nurses the great opportunity to be more autonomous than we might see otherwise. So it makes me really happy every time we get to see an episode of that. So do check it out. It's on BBC or PBS channels.
That's right. And another veteran show that we think is generally very good for nursing is Virgin River, the Netflix show that'll be back for a 6th season.
Right. And that's one of our favorite shows. Well, I get a little, I like the sappy romance better than Harry does. The main character is a nurse practitioner, and she moves to a remote town. Where's that? Oregon?
In California. Oh, no,
Yeah, that's right. And so most of it is about her romantic relationship with this bar owner, Marine. And she joins this practice with this prickly old physician. He's pretty abrasive at first, but soon comes to love her. Not romantic love, but they have a great, great relationship. And now he respects her so much. And she does a lot of work in the community as well, not just on a personal level, but advocating for the patients. And she's expert in her care, so that's a good show.
Yeah, there again, most of the show is more about personal dramas and personal traumas, but she does get to display some real skills and knowledge. She's very authoritative.
Yeah, she's good. So we also have Chicago Med coming back.
That's true. That's coming back for a 10th season. That's one of Dick Wolf's Chicago shows, along with the police and fire shows. And that's a show that originally had 3 nurse characters, even though the drama is driven mainly by the physician characters and the care revolves around them. Those characters each had something going for them. Unfortunately, after I believe the 6th season,
we lost April, who was the staff nurse.
The direct care nurse left the show. The character left the show and was not replaced. So that was unfortunate because she was good and she displayed some good skill. But there are 2 nurse characters still left on the show.
Yeah, and the charge nurse character, Maggie.
Maggie Locke. Yep, that's right.
She's very good, strong character. And Sharon Goodwin is the nurse executive. So she's in charge of not just the nurses, but the whole ER as well. So the physicians report to her. And the nurses are strong, but most of the show revolves around the physician characters still. So it's not as good of a show as Call the Midwife or Virgin River, but it's still fairly good for nursing.
Yeah, and there are minor nurse characters on the show, and they do tend to be skilled assistants to the physicians. They're obviously good at what they do, but their role is fairly limited, and they're very deferential to the physicians. And that's a show that a nurse character might deliver an unhelpful line like, "Oh, stand back and let the doctors work," or "He's one of our best doctors." Not things they would ever say about a nurse character.
Yeah, the physicians are never, "She's one of our best nurses," right? We're still waiting for that.
I better see if they can.
Okay, so we also have Transplant coming back, and you are our main media monitor for that show.
That's right. Transplant's a Canadian show. It'll be back for a fourth and final season. That season's already aired in Canada, but NBC promises to air it in the United States at some point. It's about a Syrian physician who's a refugee and has moved to Toronto and has started over at a major hospital in Toronto. So that show is also primarily about physicians, and the drama runs through them. There are several minor nurse characters. One stands out, and that's Claire Malone, who is both a head nurse and an NP. And she shows skill and authority on a regular basis, but isn't really on screen that much. And the show really portrays physicians as running care, very little autonomous care from nurses. They tend to be skilled assistants. So,
All right.
And the final show coming back is Grey's Anatomy, which has been on the air.
Your favorite. All right. We used to have, as our director joining us for a lab.
We used to have debates, Harry and I, about which was the worst show, Grey's Anatomy or House. But since House has gone off the air, we haven't had that discussion in a while. But Grey's Anatomy is one of the worst shows ever for nursing. It shows nurses as bureaucratic obstacles, just as, which one? The Brilliant Mind show. It shows nurses as haughty, contemptuous, ignorant. Occasionally, they'll be in the background, if at all, or they'll be around so they can say, "Yes, doctor. What would you like, doctor?" Just to show how great and knowledgeable the physicians are, and by extension, how ignorant the nurses are. I really do detest that show. And not only, I'm always talking to Harry about, not only do I dislike it for nursing, but it shows the characters. They fight over who can have the best case, and they seem to have no morality at all. Somehow these characters are lauded by the show as if these are great qualities to have. And I don't find in these times of incivility for this show to be portraying these characters being ugly as something to be admired. And I think as a society, we can do much better than to embrace these characters who are really ugly on the inside and think it affects the way we treat each other in society.
I agree. I think what you're reacting to mainly is the tendency of a lot of the more junior physicians on the show to compete in a kind of petty, almost childish way for the best cases, the best surgical cases. The show is really about a dozen surgeons in a hospital in Seattle. And the surgeons are portrayed as doing everything, pretty much. There are people in the background, but the surgeons provide pretty much all the patient care. They don't just provide all the nursing care, but also a lot of care that would be done by non-surgeon physicians. So there's this illusion that they're doing everything.
So, right, they provide the care of respiratory therapists, the anesthesia.
The nursing portrayals, I think, for the most part, there are no nurses. They're just in the background. They're wallpaper nurses, background nurses. When they appear or do anything, which isn't, for the most part, they don't. But on those occasions when they appear, the portrayals really range from mindless assistant to petty bureaucrat obstructing the gifted surgeon, getting in their way, kind of like we saw in the first episode of Brilliant Minds. So that's our problem with the show.
One time they had 5 neonates that had to be covered by 5 different medical interns. No nurses in sight. It was just a ridiculous portrayal of healthcare that the nurses don't exist and don't do anything. And then the best part was the interns were in there doing kangaroo care. It's like, oh, sure, you're going to be doing that.
Yeah, the show has portrayed nursing innovations as being a physician's idea. That's not unique to Grey's Anatomy, but it's back for a 21st season. It's been on 20 years. So
we would like to encourage Shonda Rhimes to take the show off the air now. It's okay. It's had its run. We are done watching this disparagement of nursing.
I think the show has been very influential. I think it's influenced generations of people. And people do, even though it's just fiction, as we often hear, people do tend to take their cues about how the world really is, to an extent, from the scenarios they see on television shows. Because even though it may be some of the coincidences and love stories may not be completely realistic, the framework that these shows present, I think a lot of people take that as a relatively realistic presentation of how healthcare works. The technical jargon sounds real. The workplace relations are presented as realistic, apart from, activities in a supply closet, but the way the different professions interact, I think is presented as very realistic.
Research shows what people see on television affects the way they behave in real life, especially and including nursing. So we are very concerned with the way nurses are portrayed in the media. The media can and should do a better job of portraying nurses. And on our website, we will have a fully written out analysis of our review. And there you can see all the different email addresses where you can write to each of the shows and share your thoughts so the people who create them can do a better job. People can learn if we talk to them about how they can and should improve. So that's it for the 2024 Fall Television Preview on Nursing in the Media. Please join us on our website at truthaboutnursing.org. Subscribe to our channel, and please join us again for our show. And thanks very much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.